want to return to something I discussed with Senator Michaelia Cash a little bit earlier in the week, and that's the worrying influence of the radical Islamist group Hizb ut-Tahrir. Now, in other Western countries, Hizb ut-Tahrir is a listed terror organisation. It is banned, it's prohibited, but not here in Australia. It's been involved alongside pro-Palestinian protesters at Sydney Uni in striking a deal that would give them influence over decisions the university makes. Now, this situation is so concerning that today a coalition of Australia's peak Jewish groups have come together to say they've lost confidence in Sydney Uni to provide for the safety of Jews on campus, and that the organisations are, quote, ready to provide support to Jewish students and staff who now wish to leave Sydney University. For more of this, I'm joined now by Director of Strategic Analysis Australia, Michael Shoebridge. Well, Michael, we've talked about these protests and all these idiots who think the River to the Sea chant is innocuous. Are you surprised, though, that we've reached a point where we've got Jewish organisations now expecting an exodus of staff and students from Sydney Uni?
No, Peter, I'm not surprised, because what the University of Sydney seems to have done is welcome into its decision-making processes voices that are influenced by extremist Islamist groups that clearly celebrated and advocated violence, including celebrating the atrocities of the 7th of October. So you can see why giving groups influenced by those voices a seat at the table in decisions about the university makes every Jewish person fearful, anxious, and I would say more than disappointed in the University of Sydney.
You and I know that amongst the Five Eyes nations, there's a lot of information sharing. One of the Five Eyes is obviously the UK. We're another party. The UK have banned Hizb ut-Tahrir. I have absolutely no doubt the reasons why they are banned would be well communicated to our intelligence agencies. Why have Hizb ut-Tahrir not been banned here in Australia? Why is the Attorney-General refusing to list them as a terror organisation? And just take people through some of the history of Hizb ut-Tahrir.
Well, Peter, I don't think this really needs to depend on intelligence agencies between the UK and Australia talking. The real problem is that this group has publicly celebrated and revelled in the atrocities and violence committed by Hamas on the 7th of October. They called for the demise of Israel after those attacks. They celebrated Hamas's mujahideen killing and kidnapping Jewish people. And they put all this out publicly. So it's known that they have promoted and revelled in those atrocities. So they have no place in public discourse or discussion here. They should be banned for what they have said. They are clearly celebrating and revelling in terrorist violence.
What about the actual deal, though, that Sydney Uni's done with these protesters? It gives them some level of oversight of defence and security related research and activities that the uni might be involved in. Now, you work in this space. Would you have confidence working with Sydney Uni now?
No, Peter. Right now, we want Australian universities and their best researchers and academics working more closely with our defence organisation and to help our nation's security. To do that, we have to trust these institutions like Sydney University and their inability to do anything but be influenced by extremist protesters who clearly have advocated hateful things. That just undercuts the trust you can have working with that institution. So they're going the wrong way. They should be becoming more trusted as partners for our national security, and the kind of deal they've struck with these fairly extremist voices undercuts the trust we can have in Sydney University.
I mean, where are we headed, Michael? We've got serious and legitimate concerns about the infiltration of Chinese state-owned entities and others in our research in Australia, buying their way into our universities and compromising our research. And now we've got to be concerned about Islamist terror organisations. Let's call Hizb ut-Tahrir for what it is. Terror organisations having a seat at the table. I mean, this is extraordinary.
Well, Peter, I think it's time for some leadership from the government. They need to be clear, both with foreign influence schemes like we saw with Chinese Premier Li, with all those renter crowds trying to intimidate peaceful protesters, and now with a group that has revelled in terrorist violence. The government needs to be clear and stop narrowcasting to tiny little electorates they seem to be worried about. They need to stop thinking about this as domestic electoral politics and start thinking about the safety and security of Australia and our cohesiveness as a community.
You're absolutely right, Michael. That's the sorry truth. It's about seats in Western Sydney and narrow casting to seats in Melbourne where there are high Chinese speaking populations. All right, thank you for your time.